Good evening. This is December 2nd, 2014, and we want to remind everybody that the meeting is being recorded. We're going to take a moment of appreciation for our servicemen and women serving around the world to start. Thank you. And I guess we're announcing that this Friday, December 5th at 6:30 is the Christmas tree lighting ceremony at Baxter Park, and Saturday, December 6th at 1 p.m., the Christmas parade will begin at the middle school.
Marching in that.
They usually ask us to. I don't think anybody asked us this time.
So we meet down at the middle school.
Yeah.
First, from Council on Aging regarding their fiscal year 2016 budget review. Roberta, thank you for coming.
Happy to be here. All right, so did you have a chance to review my budget, our budget?
Yep.
rather?
Yep.
So it's up a little bit, mostly because of utilities. The electricity is killing us over there. I budgeted for this fiscal year $12,000, and I just paid the bill the other day, and so we expended $7,762. We'll never make it. We'll be way over that $12,000. In fact, last year, December 3rd, 2013, our electric bill was $578.35. Today, December 2nd, at $977.63. So it's gone up a lot. And same with November. 2013, November 5th, we spent $578. And November 4th this year, $1,011.46. So that's just really killing us, and that's really why our budget is up.
Yeah.
Is it more kilowatt hours being used, or?
No, I honestly didn't look at that
Okay.
specifically. I was just looking at the numbers.
Yep.
I mean, we did look at that at one time, the board did.
Well, you guys are busier.
And, well, obviously, I put that graph in the back somewhere in that budget packet to show, how we're just steadily increasing with participation. And not only that, the pie chart that I have there shows the 50 to 60 age group of people is 2,500. We're 2,300. So if we're a 50-plus community, we could potentially serve 5,000 people in the town.
Yeah.
So, we are growing.
But the electrical, that's not heat also. You have, is it gas?
We have gas.
Yeah.
And that's gone up a little bit, but nothing compared to the electricity. And we've made changes within the building, as I noted in the narrative. We have the photo sensors, but we just added at the beginning of the month on the exterior lights, and we reduced the number of minutes that the fans are on each of the bathroom, which I think is going to help considerably. And also we have now motion detector light switches in those bathrooms.
Oh,
and
good.
they stay on for 10 minutes and
they go
up a lot.
Yeah.
I think the long-range solution to that is at some point we go solar.
Right, and that's down under my future
Yeah.
plans. I have that listed, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, the roof that gets good sun.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that would look, but
Yeah. But
but we have that big far field way off to the left.
There you go.
Potentially put
put a big farm up.
I'll have to get out and shovel it when it snows though.
I have
It's
enough to
always
do
someone,
with the
yeah.
sidewalks and the buses. Yeah, and we're just busier. We drove 1,600 miles a month in November.
Wow.
I put here average of 1,500 miles, and again, we also drive our 7 respite clients on Tuesdays and Thursdays to get them to the center. So it's just a busy place, and,
Yeah.
and the budget really small increase.
Oh, I agree.
Roberta, would it be possible to pay any of these increased electrical costs out of the revolving account? Theoretically, some of it is coming from
Well,
use of the hall for non-council on aging events.
you mean the rental account?
Yeah.
Well, right, except that rental account doesn't have a lot of money in it. Maybe it has about 5,000. I mean, we have a very healthy gift account, but
Well, I don't think people give a gift account to pay
Well, pay-
electric bills.
exactly.
On the other hand, when you do use the building for a non-council on aging event, you charge a fee for it. I think you are entitled, or it is appropriate that you charge some of the utility cost against that rental fee.
Oh, we could, but again, we haven't rented for a number of months, and we're still working on the policies and meeting with town council tomorrow at our board meeting to kind of work that out and see where that all kind of is,
Okay,
stands.
maybe you want to bring that up and discuss whether you should have a policy on that, because I think that would be one way at least to cover some of the cost increase. So,
We just went up on the rental fees anyhow, right?
We've, in our proposed policies, which we're reviewing with Mark tomorrow, but I don't necessarily know going up to $125 an hour for the building really will cover,
Right.
you know, plus having somebody man the building.
Right.
So it's a process, because we're not a rental hall, you know,
Right.
we are really a adult community center. It's so.
And I think, as you said before, there's a point you can only go so high that you're charging,
Right.
too high of a rate.
Right, well, and I mentioned when I was here a couple months ago,
Right.
Sharon Council on Aging, what they charge for their hall, which is a little bit bigger than ours, but I mean, they're up to $1,800 to $2,400 to rent their hall. And, you know, no one's gonna touch that, we'll just get complaints.
Any further questions?
No?
One of the things that we got in the agenda today was a letter from the Economic Development Committee, and they cited the fact that you had put in a proposal to them.
I did not.
Oh, you did not? Oh, okay, I thought somebody did. Okay.
But I think,
I
what,
could talk to them.
Oh, you know about it?
Well, I do know about it because I have, I went to the site visit that day and was back here in February last year talking about the need for housing for seniors in the community. I mean, there is no place for people to move to. And I know that most people say Medfield State Hospital, but, you know, that, I don't know how soon that is going to be developed, but we have two prime pieces of property near the senior center. We have Lot 3, and we have the Hinckley property, and I just think in my opinion, what an ideal location that is for people to be able to move out of their colonials with stairs going up and stairs going down and move into single-family homes, single-floor homes. So I would be a big proponent of any type of development like
Yeah.
that.
Who put the proposal in then, if you didn't?
I think it was Larkin Real Estate Group.
Oh,
I think they're doing, North Street?
oh, okay.
I think at some point too, we had talked about a separate entrance, exit
Yep.
that would go in, either, well, I don't know what's ever gonna happen on Lot 3, but I don't, and whether we can work out something to pick up the cost, whether that's something our highway can do without a great cost to that, but I think that's something key, because if that does develop, you're gonna have more and more traffic, and it's so hard to get in and out, especially during voting and other times, that it would make more sense to have an entrance and an exit. I don't know if the Council of Aging also agrees with that or has talked about that, but it just would seem to, without a lot of effort, just to put an exit at the far end, and then you have a nice flow in and out of there.
Just for your information, I happen to be in the Planning Board Conservation offices this afternoon, and the manager of the Kingsbury Club was in there, and they're planning to start the foundation for their pool hopefully this week, so that will impact that traffic also, so.
Yeah.
Mike, how would we fund something like that driveway? Because it makes absolute sense that that driveway should be built. And it seems unfair to make the Council on Aging pay for that out of their budget.
Well, probably it could be done in a couple of ways. One could be a capital budget request. It could be a special article.
At the town meeting.
I don't think you want to take it out of existing highway
Operating yeah.
funds, because that means
Something
you're
else
not going to be
gets.
keeping up with your road work,
Yeah.
and we're probably not keeping up with it as it is right now.
Yeah.
If something goes into Lot 3, is that something we can negotiate, that maybe they would be responsible for that?
You'd have, well, you could, it's not, that would be somewhat unusual, I guess you'd call it off-site mitigation. You probably could, but, I think how soon Lot 3 is a reality, and how soon you want to put the driveway in. You may not have someone to negotiate with by the time you want to put the driveway in.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
So I
but
think,
going back to the original splitting up of the Council of Aging land and Lot 3,
Yeah.
it came to our recognition that Lot 3 did not have enough frontage. So what the gal in the office did, she used scissors and actually cut it out so that there is enough frontage for Lot 3 by taking away some of the frontage that, of the Council of Aging. So if we go through that end of Lot 3, of the Council of Aging's parking space,
It's going
we
to go
are
off of you.
actually taking away
Oh, I see what you mean.
frontage
On lot 3 for
from
lot 3.
Lot 3.
I see what you mean.
So it's, you know.
Not a good
almost crazy
situation
thing.
then, huh? Okay,
Yeah.
it's more complicated.
Well, we'll have to take a look at that then, yeah.
and the third factor is we also use that circle, rotary,
helicopter
as
landing,
a
yeah.
helicopter landing
Yeah,
site too.
but they're
so
not
that's
there
gonna
very
be
often,
factored
so.
in, yeah.
But the driveway wouldn't impact that.
Hopefully not, yeah.
All right, so it'll take a little more work then, obviously, to see if that's possible, even possible, yeah.
Well, I think it's just somebody sitting down, looking at the exact plan, where exactly is the Lot 3, and where does the Council of Aging property go into that parking lot, and can an exit be put there?
Another alternative you could do would be to do something similar to what they do in a couple of subdivisions in town, where you widen the existing driveway, put an island in the middle, so you have a separate entrance and exit
Down at that end.
down at that
That end
end,
where
so
it's
you're
already-
keeping it all on the straight part of the roadway, but you've separated them with an island,
Mm-hmm.
and that might
That could be
be
an
a way
option
to
too,
address
yeah.
it also.
Yeah, so something to look at, yeah.
And what about putting streetlights on Ice House Road? Is that ever a possibility?
I'm sure you want to take the money out of your budget?
No, but I'll do a capital budget
No, I
request
mean,
for it.
everything is a possibility. The question is, when you add up all the possibilities and then you try to pay for them, it gets to be a bit of a problem. So we have to take a look at where we are in terms of the budget and then see what possibilities can become realities. We do have the footings in for streetlights there, and it would be a good thing to put in. We've delayed it as you know, because it's one of those things that you can delay it and use the money to pay for other things. So where it comes up on the priority list, I guess, and that's why we have you guys to
So
the
we,
finance committee to figure out some of these
Yeah.
things.
a couple of years ago, we actually had to replace one of our lights because it got knocked over. And I think, if I remember correctly, it was about 20, maybe 500, I think.
Well, it's there's the cost of replacing lights, and then you got the cost of operating on them. If we're going to light that, the ideal way to do it would be to try to use LED lights, because you save about 70% on your energy cost. So I think we'd want to look into a different type of lighting fixture that would utilize LED lights as opposed to, say, the standard.
Yeah, absolutely.
That we have in parking lot.
Yeah.
I'd like to, first of all, generally, the center is not open after dark, and yet the Kingsbury Club and whatever goes into Lot 3 would be using that. I think the burden of that should be put on them somehow, not on the center, which isn't even open when it's dark.
It isn't a burden for them because it's a public way. They might be willing to help with it. They've been very generous about agreeing to help in the past, but I'd say the burden of lighting that technically would be the town's burden
Because it's a public road, yeah.
if the Kingsbury Club wished to
Help.
help.
Whatever goes into Lot 3, I'd like to, maybe in a friendly way, approach them, because they're the ones that are going to benefit from that.
Right, yeah.
Thanks very much, Roberta, appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, could I
Yes.
go back
Yes,
to a
please.
point on the electrical power that we're paying for? I recently received a electric light bill, and the way it broke down was a total of about $74. $36 was spent on transmission of the electrical power, and $37 was the cost of the electrical power. Speaking to NSTAR recently, because I was getting a lot of mail from a company called NRG. NRG has picked up Dominion as service company.
Yeah.
And NSTAR said that if I was paying NSTAR rates, I would be paying 10.1 cent per kilowatt hour for transmission. And in the next 3 months, it would go up to 10.5. So where you're seeing a lot of the cost of electricity is in the transmission of it. And in an article in the Globe on November 27th, they talk about the increases that we're gonna see in the electric
Yeah, the bills, yeah.
bills.
Yeah.
So that's why we put in a significant increase in the cost.
Sure, in the bill, yeah, in the budget, yeah.
And that's why I think your recommendation of eventually go solar in the future just makes so much sense.
Oh, that's it. True. But, you know, to get from me here to there,
Right.
we're gonna have to spend more money.
It seems ironic, though, doesn't it, that when you're talking about collapsing oil prices, surplus natural gas, that the cost of generation is going up. And in part, it's because we're closing down all the plants and we don't have adequate capacity to get the fuel in here. It's kind of an irony that when you're constantly reading about energy prices falling, but then you read that your utility bills are going to go up. It seems to be counterintuitive, but.
You don't always have to spend money to get solar energy. You can do a power purchase agreement where you're basically just renting your roof or some of your land, and then the third party will actually put in the solar cells, and you don't get as big a return if you do it that way as opposed to investing and putting the money in yourself. But you can do it without putting in any capital if you want.
Has the town made any movement in that direction, or?
Town is looking at two sites. One is the wastewater treatment plant, about 3 acres behind the wastewater treatment plant, for a 2 kilowatt system? 200.
2
megawatt. 2 megawatt, okay. And it's, the operator of the wastewater treatment plant got a grant from the state for about $180,000, or 20% of the cost. The cost looks like it would be around $650,000 was the estimate from the consultant to put it in, so the town's share would be reduced by 20%, about a fifth of that. It seems to make sense for that one to do that via town ownership because of the state grant. The other one is on the roof of the highway garage. And that's about the same size, actually, system. And that one, the suggestion was to do it through a power purchase agreement. So
we will have an energy manager starting in January, so that will be one of the first places we'll send him.
Have you hired somebody now, Mike?
Yes.
Excellent, good. Congratulations.
It took a while, but
It did.
hopefully it'll be worth the wait.
Yep.
Who did we hire, yeah?
Name's Andrew Seaman. Has been in NOAA, spent time in Antarctica, actually, but we'll have him come in when he starts in January to introduce himself.
That'd be good.
Next, we're going to meet with the inspection department. John?
Have you had a chance to take a look at our budget? And we sent you a lot of paperwork.
You did? Yes, is the answer.
Yeah. So it looks like we're looking for about a 9.6 increase on our budget. Key factors on that is with our new permitting software, brings in field devices, basically an iPad in the field for the inspectors to enter their field notes and inspections.
Mhm.
Therefore, they don't have to come back to the office and then re-enter paperwork again. Everything is entered into the field.
Yep.
Postage rate increase,
Yeah.
just to get in, to stay with the increase on that. We also increased 500 on the car mileage,
Yeah.
increase on field inspections.
Yeah.
So we try to anticipate where we're gonna be at with the inspection request, and then just routine maintenance on the vehicle. It's the first time the department's had a vehicle, so now we're kind of learning on what's needed for the department
So
for
that, yeah.
routine maintenance on it, if you will. We also have a proposed in front of you, an increase on fees. Not too many on the building side. On the building side, we've added a couple of new ones into there. Increased a little bit on the sheet metal side, just to keep with where other towns around us are.
Okay.
We did increase on the wiring. Not a significant jump, but an increase. And probably our biggest increase on it was plumbing and gas. We were well below everybody around us. We weren't technically even covering 100% on every inspection that we sent out for.
Mhm.
So we had Jack Rose, our plumbing inspector, went over. He did a survey of 6 surrounding towns.
Okay.
He came up, and that's what you have before us for
Okay.
So, because some of that was kind of a hefty jump, so that's kind of the average of the 6 towns?
correct.
Yeah.
Yep. The last time we did a plumbing and gas was in '08. Wiring and building fees haven't been done since '05.
Wow. Yeah.
Since June of '05. So
Yeah.
we took a look at it and came up with that.
Yeah.
On another note, with the 40B coming up,
Yeah.
we have sat with multiple meetings with the general contractor and their subs on where we're going to be for inspections.
Okay.
And looking at where we've been over the other years for inspections, we've always been able to stay pretty much even keel across with the 6 different buildings. There's 92 units.
Yeah.
We can't just go out one day and inspect 92 units. So with that, we are projecting that we're going to be over on our mileage and on our on our inspections because of the part-time inspectors get paid per inspection.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give you the heads up that, hey, we are gonna probably overrun that on our line budget, so that
Yeah.
we'll probably be looking for some money at the end of the year to say, hey, we ran over.
Mhm.
Building permits, we're almost about 100 permits, about 93 permits over last year's permits.
Mhm.
Plumbing, electrical, about even. We've had some close downs of some projects that are finalizing. Montrose is winding down.
Okay. Yeah.
DPW is done. They're just doing some fine notes that they have to fix up on. All the restaurants have been done. Brothers Market's now open.
Mhm.
Dunkin' Donuts is open. Manja and Tara. We have the 40B that's pretty much broken ground already. Probably be getting a foundation on the ground very shortly. The next thing for 2015, we have the Ords block next door.
Yeah.
That's gonna be breaking ground. And then possibly even the public safety building.
Sure.
So some big projects has gone away, some new projects to come back in. Let's see what else we have. You have my 5-year goals for
Mhm.
inspections.
Yep.
Thank you very much for those.
Yep. Again, we have our new software program, so we want to get that fully up and running. We're working through the fine notes on that now to get that final, hopefully be fully up and running before the end of the year.
Mhm. Mhm.
See what other departments need to get into it, get the training in for them. We're gonna get our side set and then bring in other departments into it. So it'll be, hopefully be town-wide
Mhm. Mhm.
by the time it's complete. Go through sorting and categorizing of all of our building plans. My assistant Scott's been down there since I've been here. We've gone through, categorized. Basically, it was a big closet full of forms and
Yeah.
building plans, so we're trying to get that categorized. Would like to look into setting up a second administrative assistant in our office, or even another local inspector, and then implement some kind of a new process for zoning complaints. You know, instead of just being an email or a phone, phone message something in through People GIS. You can upload a complaint, upload photos if you have. Try to bring it all together. Any questions?
You mentioned that you were up 100 permits. Is that mainly renovations?
Yeah, the majority is renovations. Yeah.
Okay.
And
The other- Go ahead.
is that the bulk also of the 121,000 increase then? Is most of that coming from?
Well, we've had some big projects going too. So we've had big commercial that brought in a big chunk of money. I don't think reflected in there is the 40B into that, but that's basically a lot of commercial projects. And 90% of our revenues right now, I believe, are residential side and on renovations. We have a good amount of new homes, but there's still a lot of.
So then probably next year, if a lot of those commercial ones are gone, those amounts probably will be down?
I'm hoping we're gonna stay even.
Yeah.
Well, because you've got the park at Medfield, that's gonna be
Park at
be
Medfield.
generating a lot of inspections.
Correct.
And fees there.
Correct.
92 units, Yeah, yeah.
So, John, you know what really jumped out at me was the fact that you have brought in $577,000 from your inspections.
That's what we're gonna project by the close of this fiscal year. We're
That
right
you're
now, I think that's
on target to do that?
calendar year. But yeah, we're bringing in some money.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to get you to do more business for the town.
Let's just hope we keep it even keel. That's all we're hoping for.
Let me I just want to just personally thank you for your professionalism. You've brought the whole department up to, I think, a high standard and level, and just your work ethics and stuff are just commendable, so just thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to, as you keep working on the goals as far as, obviously computerizing more and more of the things. I'm sure you're dying to get
We're
all this
hopeful
stuff.
for it. With this
Yeah,
new
it's gonna be so
software,
good.
we have, we're going through it now to work out the kinks in it. But I'm very hopeful that we're gonna have online permitting.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to, contractors will be able to enter the permits from their home or from their offices. They won't have to come in
physically,
and physically do it in the office.
Yeah, that'd be great.
One other thing you'll be dealing with during the year is John's car is about to bite the dust, if it hasn't already. He's got an old police cruiser that was renovated, and a couple of things to think of is how do you go about replacing that? I don't think there are any police cruisers that are to be turned in this year, so that's not an option.
Unless the chief wants to get he's got to get a new vehicle.
Don't suggest it. You didn't hear that.
You notice I'm remaining mute.
But under the Green Communities
Oh, yeah,
Act,
yeah.
if we had adopted that, you would have to buy a energy efficient vehicle for this department.
Yeah.
This is not an emergency department,
Yeah.
so you would either have to get a hybrid or an electric or some sort of emergency vehicle rather than turn over an existing vehicle.
So we'll get like a little Fiat or something, a little Fiat 500 for you, something
You'd
like
do
that.
good.
Mike would love that.
Yes. Oh,
They make that four-wheel drive.
I think part of our fitness program, we ought to get him a mountain bike. But that will probably come up as a capital budget request or
Right, yeah.
something
Yeah,
along those
that's a good
lines, or
idea.
unless we manage to come up with a car
Find
that we
something.
can keep going for another few years.
Yeah.
And there's no reason not to get an energy efficient car, Mike.
The what?
There's no reason not to get an energy efficient car.
Well, it's the same thing I was talking about, street lights on Ice House Road. They're all good things, but they all cost money, and you have to weigh
Well,
one
if you're gonna
against the
get
others.
one. I mean, the payback periods on the hybrids now, I understand, is pretty fast.
Yeah, I think they are, yeah.
So-
Good, they've come down quite a bit in price, I think, so.
Yep. I think the price differential that was quoted to me recently was only about $1,800 between the Toyota hybrid and
Yeah.
gas model, and the payback was just 2 or 3 years on it. Thank you very much, John. I
Thank
would
you.
extend my
Thanks,
thanks
John.
also to Scott. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott.
Excuse me, before you leave his budget,
Oh, we need to
They have
vote
to
some
vote.
stuff.
Yeah.
Vote the fees, increase in the
Um,
fees.
Oh, okay.
The Selectmen are requested to vote to increase, thank you, Evelyn, the building department permit fees as recommended and also discussed. So I guess that's it. No? And request to the Selectmen to vote to file, disclosure statement with the town clerk on behalf of John relating to the Park 240B, 40B project on West Street, and John's wife's sister has something to do with a company that has something to do with the park and Wilkins Glen, and that didn't seem like any sort of problem to me at all. So do we have a motion on those two things?
I move that we increase the building permit fees, the wiring permit fees, and plumbing and gas fees as so printed in the handout provided for us by John.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
And you want one on the...
On the disclosure, yes, two, please.
You need to find as the hiring authority that the conflict is not so substantial as to interfere with his ability to do his work.
Thank you, Mr. Town Council. So do we have a motion that tracks the Town Council's statement?
So moved.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, John.
And next, we're scheduled to hear from the police chief to discuss personnel hiring. Thank you for coming.
Good evening. So what I have is, we've had some retirements, and we're going to have another 2 retirements. So I'd like permission from you folks to fill out the forms and bring it down to you to request replacement officers to fill those slots. Officer O'Neill, Jim O'Neill, went to the DEA during the summer, late summer. He's going to be graduating from the academy in November.
Excellent, excellent.
He's going to work in Boston for a couple of months, and then he goes to Detroit. Sergeant Mayer retired in September and has moved to the western part of the United States.
Very good.
Officer Friend went over to the retirement board a couple of weeks ago, and he has sufficient time to retire, so he's opted to use that option. So he's going to be leaving in January. And then Officer Grover will reach the mandatory retirement age later, early mid-2015. So figure start the process now as opposed to wait. So really what I'd like is just your permission to fill out the paperwork. I'll bring it back down. I believe perhaps Mr. Peterson is the only one that has to sign it, the requisition form, so that I can get a list of the candidates and start doing background checks and whatnot.
Okay.
So that's what I'm looking for, not adding any additional people. At some point over the next year, we'll have to have a discussion about a school resource officer, because as part of the governor's revamping of the firearms legislation, it was strongly suggested that a community have a school resource officer. We have one or 2 or 3 officers that actually do that on an as-needed basis, and it works okay, but the benefits of having somebody doing that on a regular basis would be pretty good. So that's not for right now. That'll be for a discussion later on, perhaps with my budget and whatnot. But for now, that's the permission I'm looking for, and I'll then fill out the paperwork and bring it back up for you to sign, if it's okay.
Yep, that's fine, yeah.
Do you want it in the form of a motion or just...
We do need it in the form of a motion to authorize me to sign the... no, wrong one.
Requisition form will be the...
Yeah, we don't have it now. Yeah.
It's in there somewhere, I think.
Did they take the lieutenant's exams yet?
Sergeants.
Sergeants?
Yes, sergeant exam was taken in October,
I guess it isn't.
and
Not
we'll
yet,
probably
no.
get the results of that late January, early February, somewhere in that time period. And then this year, this exam, we're doing something different. There's a component of an assessment center. So it's not going to be based strictly on mark. It's going to be based on the mark on the exam, training and experience, and also an assessment of a person's management and supervisory skills.
Excellent.
That is not done by me, done by neutral parties who you pretty well look to find someone that has to look on the map to find where Medfield is, so that it's very neutral. and very open.
I move then that we allow Chairman Peterson to sign the necessary paperwork so that the chief can begin the process of hiring the 4 replacements.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Chief.
I wonder, Chief, before you go, just updates on a couple of things, if you
Sure.
could. On the traffic lights, the timing, I think you have the funding. Is there a ballpark of when that work can be done?
What you remember the gentleman we met with, want to make sure that his company is actually correctly on the state purchase bid list so that we can use his company and his services. So I'm making sure of that.
Okay.
The application is put in, it supposedly has been approved, but I wanted to make sure that it's all done and absolutely correct. But there is a plan, how they're gonna do it, as, we discussed, so,
So that's still going.
yep.
And just real quick, we had talked before, and I think, without putting words in your mouth, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had talked about a priority of a sidewalk on Metacomet Street.
I would like that, yes.
And I think we had met with Ken Feeney, and I think he was going to look, there was some question whether the layout and what, are we still on board with that? And is that something that's going to require some kind of a town meeting action? Where do we go with that?
Probably, we do have a sidewalk budget, but that's primarily for maintenance of existing sidewalks.
So probably a
If you're
separate.
putting new sidewalks in
But
generally.
Ken kind of thought that could be an in-house, but he wasn't quite sure about the layout of the
Is
street.
there a layout on the street?
wasn't
That's what he was
sure.
gonna look into, and also whether what's gonna be required for drainage.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So where are we? Is that something we need to get working on if we're going to do something at this year's town meeting?
Yes, yeah, we should. I'll talk to Ken tomorrow and see where he stands on that.
And then an issue that I've brought up several times, and I've spoken to the chief several times as well, and the chief certainly can say whether he sees that as an issue or not. But a number of years ago, we put traffic lights on South Street and 27, and that works very well. We get all the people to work, but now those same people that went to work have to come home. And there's no lights. When you come down South Street onto 27, that line oftentimes is backed up at least the Lawrence Circle, usually back to Grist Mill, and in the worst case, over the railroad tracks that are down there. And certainly anybody that lives in the Indian Hill, Stagecoach, Juniper Lane, Luffler, Granite Street, Plain Street, Stewart area, you're waiting forever. And my fear a little bit, and I watch this, is that you wait so long. Once you get down there, then it's like you're gunning it to go out. And I know there's been a couple of accidents, but I guess not a lot, where people have, unfortunately, they leave their blinker on, and you're anxious to turn, and that car ends up going straight. I'm wondering whether we can have a traffic study, and I've asked the chief, and just as a ballpark, I think we're in the 8,000 to 10,000 as a guess, range for a traffic study, and then I have no idea what traffic lights in that area would cost. And because of the uniqueness of the dog leg there, you would basically have to have that entire area act as one intersection. And so the lights would have to tie in. So it would be some work to that, but we solved the problem before of getting the people out. It's a mess that's there, in my opinion, and I think we need to take some action to begin to look at how to solve that issue. So.
When you say a traffic study, what are you trying to figure out? What are you going to study?
Well, I think before we just put lights up, I mean, I'm no expert on lights. I mean, I look and it's common sense, it looks like a problem there, but I would imagine before you put lights, you have to have some type of a study that looks at the volume of traffic accidents. What is required, Chief, with a traffic study?
You'd look at volume, you look at the volumes at specific times of the day, you'd look at motor vehicle crashes, what the crashes consisted of, and then you put it all together, and they're gonna make a recommendation as to what you should do out there.
Do we have the ability to count traffic? Do you have one of those strips that you can, the tubes that go across the street to count cars?
We do not. The only thing I have is I do have the small radar unit that I use for counts, but the problem with that is it only really counts down there. It'd be confusing to do. And actually, even if you had the counters, what we found is that when we did the study here in the square for the traffic lights, and when Roach Brothers did their study, if you have an intersection, you have someone that sits in the lawn chair, literally, and counts the type of turning movements that people are making, so that you get it fairly detailed. So it's sometimes it's a bit more than just the rubber hose. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Because I think you'd have to expand that, because what I've noticed, because it's so bad, people now are taking Curve Street, which is one of the narrowest streets that we have over the bridge with that bend, and the traffic on Curve Street is now backed up, in many cases, over the bridge. I think a light would alleviate some of the issues on Curve Street, but I would imagine you would probably have to include that in your traffic study, taking a look at what's going on at Curve Street, because the traffic is so bad at South, people trying to beat that are now trying to be up one intersection under Curve Street, and then the people that live on Curve Street have noticed a tremendous increase in traffic, and that's not the safest of roads on Curve Street.
Yeah, you'd have to take into account the people who are leaving Curve Street and heading towards Walpole and Norfolk. The ones that go into the Catholic Church really wouldn't count, so you'd have to take those. The other thing you'd have to take into consideration, and this is just from talking to some of the neighbors in that area, is once you make, it's a double-edged sword, you make that intersection easier to get out of, you may attract more traffic to the Main Street, Pound Street, South Street area. So that, you gotta weigh that out, what sort of factor that is, and are those people gonna drive there anyway? So if they are, do you just make it simpler for them to get out, as you're suggesting?
And don't you have to have an issue, do you have an issue too, are you concerned about, I thought it had come up at a committee a couple of years ago about the proximity between South Street and 27, those two lights, right? Do you have an issue that the actual lights might be too close to each other? You might not actually be allowed to put two lights there?
That's why you'd have to consider that. We actually talked about that. You consider that as one intersection, correct?
Yeah, there's, I think over in Franklin, there's an intersection by a middle school over there that's
The Kennedy Middle
that's
School.
elongated. It's not a T, it's not an X, it's an elongated intersection, so one leg stops, you've got another 50 yards to where the other part of the intersection is, but
The way to
it
the
all works
Tri-County
as
School.
one.
By the Kennedy Middle School.
Kennedy's the elementary school.
Elementary school, yeah,
On Pond Street?
yeah.
The road that goes from like
Oh, that,
Medway
yes,
over.
right, Partridge, yeah.
Yeah,
So you'd have, and you're absolutely right, Mark.
Two sets of lights that are coordinated.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, you absolutely would have to look at that as one
That was
intersection.
in
yeah.
Mass Highway reconstruction about 15 years ago.
Okay.
Yep, definitely have to take that into consideration.
The reason, Richard, that I ask about what type of study you're thinking of, because what seems like might make more sense or be more economic in any event would be to just have Roland LaValle from HNTB or some highway engineer go and walk around and give you his gut reaction for $500 instead of spending $8,000 to $10,000.
Can you do
Have him
that?
walk around quickly.
I don't know that HNTB Roland is the way it used to be when you could do things like that. If he's willing to do it, or if on an informal basis, that's fine, but
There's probably no harm in if there were someone associated with the Medfield community who has done traffic engineering and whatnot, wanted to give an opinion to us as to,
Yeah.
we're probably either gonna get, yeah, it might work and, you ought to do a study, or you might get, oh, don't even think about doing that. I think in order to convince the state that we should do it, we need some documentation, but the initial run-by, we could get perhaps someone that may be willing to voice their opinion on it.
now that you've alluded to the Franklin situation, And the beauty of that, with the double lights and the coordinators, it doesn't really give anybody any encouragement to do an alternate in that area, because you're gonna get held up one way or the other. You're not gonna be able to do a shortcut and make an end around, because the lights, the double sets of lights are coordinated, and you're just taking your chances, you're gonna get, either go through with the lights, or you're gonna get stopped one way or the other, so.
So I guess I'm throwing that, I see that as a problem, and I'm looking for what the best route to begin to look at that and how we begin to address that issue. And I think a lot, I'm gonna depend on your expertise and your recommendations of what you think. But it just seems like we solved the problem by having one set of lights of getting people to work, but we've never addressed the issue. Those same people, they're not in the witness protection programs. I mean, they come home, and they have to come back. And we never addressed that.
Well, the other thing I can do is there's a couple of traffic consultants that the town works with on a regular basis. So I can pick up the phone, make a call, and see what sort of brief opinion they might be willing to provide. And some direction as to, all right, if you'd like to do this, here is what you really need to do. And maybe that would help
Yeah, well,
with
that's
the
what I was
decision
thinking. I mean,
making.
Roland does all kinds of work for Ken Feeney all the time, so.
And then maybe they could make a set of recommendations of where we need to go and what the different steps are, and maybe some estimate costs of what lights would be, in that intersection.
Yep.
Okay.
Mike, any thoughts?
Well, I think what you suggested is a good start. I think in order to design if you decided to go with additional lights there,
You'd have to
It'll be
design something.
expensive, it'll be expensive, I
you
would think,
need
to
to do
design
an
it.
engineering study
Yeah.
to
Oh, yeah,
design the proper,
proper, yeah,
arrangement
because
for
it's
the
pretty
lights.
complicated
yeah,
there,
yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Because you could create a mess inadvertently, you could create a real big mess. All of a sudden, you could have
Yes, yes.
27 backed up in both directions for
Yeah,
miles, just trying to get people out, from South Street. But
Right, yeah, my initial, listening to your statement, you could have traffic backed up across 109 and 27 if you weren't careful,
Yeah,
because you do get a lot of traffic
on
going
27.
southbound in the afternoon.
27, yeah.
So you have
Be
to make
careful,
sure
Very,
that,
very careful, yeah.
it's sort of like the problem you get at 109 and 27. In order to keep the traffic moving on 27, you back up the traffic on 109 and vice versa.
Yeah,
So sometimes improving it for one street makes it worse for the
yeah.
other.
So,
So that may be why you need a traffic study to look
yeah,
at it.
definitely.
I think it's a very complicated situation there, yeah, and because you've got pretty heavy volumes on both streets, actually.
Both streets, yeah.
But I think it's clearly, it's a problem and it's an issue.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we need to at least begin to look at how we can best solve it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Good idea, Richard.
And the
Thank you, Chief.
short-term traffic issue that I'll mention while I'm in a public setting is the Angel Run is Sunday. And instead of starting from the Wheelock School, as has been done in the past, they're going to start the race at the high school and middle school complex. So instead of Elm Street being congested with some 1,000 to 1,200 runners, we're now going to have that on South Street. Now, the good news from my point of view is that when they leave the high school and they go South Street, it's all downhill. So I'm hoping they pick up the pace and get off of South Street and onto Elm
Yeah.
quick. It's not, it's just a little bit of uphill towards the end.
Yeah.
But we're gonna put the digital signboard out probably Friday
Yeah,
on South Street by Village Way.
yeah.
And then the Walpole Police Department is gonna let me borrow their digital signboard and put it on Route 27 by South Street, so that you won't drive up South Street, get to the railroad tracks,
Oh, that's it.
and there's all these runners. So we're gonna try to work that out and see how that modification to the run goes this year. I understand I'm gonna see Mr. Peterson there as the lead parking person, am I correct?
I'm there helping to park, yes.
Yes, you would
Yes,
toss
I'm
to
looking
the
for two
bus.
more volunteers, by the way, if anybody's interested. Richard, Mike?
To your left, to your right. So I'll look forward to seeing you on Sunday, and we'll see how this goes.
And it was, they actually had 1,200 registered runners by
Yes,
the
as
by the
of
time
today.
that well, as of today, when the T-shirts, several weeks ago, they had 1,200 runners.
Yeah. And they
So-
usually pick up a couple hundred between the close
So
of the
it's-
online and the actual start of the race.
Yeah, so it should be maybe a record crowd, hopefully, so.
And I believe
And it
it's,
ends- it-
good, sorry.
It ends at the high school, too.
Starts and ends at the high school, yeah. So, that's what I have.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next appointment's on at 8:15. We're going to talk about buying a state hospital, finally. And we'll just fill in until then. Action items, vote to authorize me to sign waste disposal agreement with Wheelabrator Millbury.
Right, this is something that the town of Walpole has been heading up. We're part of a consortium, I believe around 20 towns, that contracted jointly with Wheelabrator Millbury, which subsequently has been purchased by Waste Management.
Okay.
And I think, I'm not even sure if Waste Management no, the Waste Management sold some of their incinerators, I think.
Okay.
That's what they did.
Waste management selling it.
Is selling this, so this is a third entity that now comes in. So we have a 20-year contract. We're about 8 years into the contract. And an attorney by the name of DiGiorgio, is it? Giorgio has been negotiating this and came up with Copeland. He's with Copeland and Page. Okay, they were able to negotiate a very advantageous amendment to the contract where we roll back the per ton price from about $76 to $60 a ton for the first 18 months, starting in January of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes back to $66 a ton in, I believe it's 2017. And after that, it goes up by 3/4 of the
CPI.
Yeah.
which is what currently is called for in the contract, but right now we're at $76 a ton.
That's good.
So all of the towns are passing this amendment. I believe they have to have at least 2/3 by tonnage agree to it by the end of December. Town council and I and Ken Meaney have reviewed it. We would recommend that you vote to adopt the amendment and authorize the chairman to sign on the board's behalf, so we can get it back to Walpole and they can start getting their.
Mike, do you have an estimate of how much savings that would be to the town?
Yes, initially I estimated it should save us between $45,000 and $50,000 a year, depending on our tonnage. So it's quite a hefty savings, and there is good news once in a while in budgeting. So.
Any further discussion, then? All in,
you
well, we need a motion, yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we allow Chairman Peterson to sign the waste disposal agreement of Wheelabrator Millbury, Inc. I'm sorry, please repeat. Approve the amendment and authorize him to sign.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
There's so many votes that we probably do wrong when you're not here, Mark.
Evelyn takes care of it.
The minutes are right.
We're gonna be doing the same thing in Franklin tomorrow.
Let's see, next item is vote to issue RFP for cable franchise license renewal or vote to authorize town administrator to issue relating to Comcast of Massachusetts, Inc.
I think this is something town council should address for you.
We engaged attorney William Solomon, who specializes in handling cable franchise negotiations, was involved with the last round. And basically, these proceed on parallel tracks. One is a formal process, and the other is an informal process. The informal process is a negotiation with the particular franchisee, which in this case is Comcast. If that is successful, then you avoid having to go further with the formal process. But at the moment, in order to, and we've been in negotiation with Comcast, we had a very productive meeting, and Attorney Solomon had a very productive follow-up meeting with a representative from Comcast. And we're optimistic that come next meeting, we'll be able to report to you that we've reached an agreement that we can recommend. But in the meantime, just to protect the town's interest, it's Attorney Solomon's recommendation that you vote to authorize the issuance of an RFP for a cable franchise. It's not renewal, it's a cable franchise. Basically, if you didn't come to terms with Comcast, hypothetically, this would be in play for anybody that wanted to respond.
Okay.
So you can either authorize yourselves or authorize a TA to issue it if needed.
So are we supposed to be voting that tonight then?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion then?
We do. I move that we vote to issue an RFP for the cable franchise license renewal and to authorize the, you want the town administrator?
To issue it?
Do you want the,
Issue the RFP?
do you want, you want us to vote to authorize the town administrator, or?
That's up to you, I think it's easier.
Yes, I
Okay.
agree.
Take the word renewal out of the motion.
Okay. Let me rephrase that then. We vote to issue an RFP for the cable franchise license and to authorize the town administrator to so issue.
For Comcast of Massachusetts,
For
Inc.
Comcast of Massachusetts, Inc.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Mark, could you just explain why we have to put an RFP out when we issue these licenses? You know, any company can come in anytime and ask for a license. To me, I sort of view it as a liquor license application. You know, they can come in serially and ask for a license.
Well, not only that, but it's just practical matters. What you basically have is a legislative structure that goes back to the early days of cable when they were actually building our infrastructure, which just isn't happening anymore. I mean, there's new technologies that have superseded that. So you've got that process in place, and there's a lot of gray areas and gaps. And Solomon, who supposedly is an expert in this area, doesn't have a clear answer. In our discussions, it was not, what I heard him say was, it's not absolutely clear that you even have to issue the RFP, but to be on the safe side, just follow this process. So there's no downside to doing this.
The other thing to be aware of is we have included Medfield.TV in the negotiations. Dave Maxon and Aditi Tati have been sitting in with us and with Bill Solomon, and they're in agreement with what Bill Solomon seems to be negotiating. So
With Comcast.
The cable access, however your community handles it, and in most cases, they've gone to these private, I should say, nonprofit corporations to operate them, as opposed to the town themselves. But any monies that are negotiated here are earmarked and have to be expended for the improvement and operation of that system. So it's earmarked funds, any way you look at it.
you should be aware that almost all of the money and equipment that is negotiated in this contract goes to Medfield.TV, not to the town of Medfield. The only thing Medfield gets out of these license agreements is 50 cents per subscriber. So if you take, you know, I think between Comcast and Verizon, we have something like 3,800 subscribers, or maybe 4,000. So you're talking about, you know, $1,900 to $2,000 total
Right.
that the town gets out of it. Any other funds go to Cable 8.
Which is
great Medfield
for our
TV.
public service,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Next, we're asked to vote to approve calendar year 2015 all alcoholic licenses for Basil, Jing's Garden 2, Kingsbury Club Medfield, Noon Hill Grill, Takara, Zebras, Solizai, Aya,
That's the Basque
the
restaurant?
Basque one, the new one, the unopened one.
That's supposed to open soon, right?
Not until after the first of the year.
The plumbing.
Did it, yeah.
Yeah.
Club license for American Legion, Beckwith, Post 110. All alcohol package store license to Bullard's Market, Medfield Package Store, Larkin's Liquors, and Vet Package Store, also known as Palumbo Liquors. Wine and malt license to Medfield Wine Shop and Medfield Commons. Do we have a motion that
So
tracks
moved,
that?
Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Vote to authorize me to sign 2014 Tree City application.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep. I thought we had already applied and become a Tree
Yeah,
City.
do we have to do that every year? Is that,
Probably.
we have to do it each year?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, we have to take our signs down, I guess.
Yeah, well, we haven't put our sign up, so that would. Vote to authorize me to sign the appreciation letter for the 2014 SWAP volunteers at the transfer station.
What a great job they've done, absolutely. I move that.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yep. Very nice letter, too. So, Mike, you drafted, or whoever
Well,
drafted it, very nice job.
I did it, and it was substantially and amended by Megan Sullivan, so you
good for her.
could give her the credit for this one. so.
Under licenses and permits, Sarah Powers, representative for beginning years, parent board requests a one-day wine and malt beverage permit for a parent social event on Saturday, December 6th at the Medfield Library, 6 to 8 p.m.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep. And then selectmen's reports. Richard DeSorga.
Yeah, a couple of things. I wonder, can we put back, which we started on our agendas, that topic pending? Can we get that back on our agenda?
Yeah, we should.
There's just a couple of things I brought up. Mike, you're probably sick of me, that the Harding Farm Street Railroad, where are we with that?
I've talked to the real estate office, and I have to email them the information on it, so I'll be getting that, so.
Okay. And what's the story? Are we scheduled to meet with the Water and Sewer Board that was originally, when is that?
We had scheduled them before, and they wanted a little more time to get their house in order. They are meeting on the 16th or 17th, I believe, the 17th. But they are just putting together their review for next year, so I think they'd prefer to meet with you in early January,
Yeah.
so that they can have an idea on rates and
Yeah.
projects and whatnot, so.
Okay.
They have met for the annual capital projects review, and they're trying to get the operating budgets in order for the 17th meeting, so it'll be a little while longer, but I think I'll be in a better position to sit down and talk to you, so.
Those materials, Mike, that they circulated on the capital projects were pretty impressive, I thought.
Yeah, well,
They've done a nice job of laying that out for the next 20 years or something.
Yeah, that's Willis Pelagian's $3 million option formula that he came up with. It's really fascinating to
Yeah.
see it in
That's
action.
part of his, that comes out of his tool that he created.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
That's
yeah.
a very nice bit of data.
It's an amazing system. So.
I had a call from a resident up on Green Street that is trying to get into a new house, and everything is all set except they're having an issue, I guess, with N-Star, and it's an issue as to where the telephone poles are supposed to be located. And apparently, my understanding is N-Star wants to locate the telephone pole in the front of someone's yard, not on the property lines. What can we do so that this person can move into the house and someone doesn't have a telephone pole in front of their yard there?
Ken Meaney and I went up and met with the individual last week, and I asked him to send me a copy of the plan, if he could get a hold of a copy of the plan, which he did promptly. And when we reviewed it, all the poles on Green Street are on the southerly side. His house is on the northerly side. there's quite a distance between the two poles where his pole would tie in. The service, the electrical service on his new house is on the is on the side where, in order to tie the electricity in, you'd have to put a pole in front of the house across the street, and they've sort of evenly divided the distance between the two other poles. And when you evenly divide that distance, it comes sort of right in front of the front door of the people across the street.
Couldn't they run that pole and put a pole on his property? He's not opposed to having a pole on his property.
It's on the other side of the street.
And just
though.
run it into the house.
That's something he'd have to work out. That would be considered a private pole, and he'd have to pay for that. If he's willing to do that, that's an option that he has to discuss with NSTAR. I had asked him to let his neighbor know where the pole would be.
The neighbor's not pleased.
I won't think I would either.
Yeah.
So that probably is an option, that they could run a pole across the street to a private pole in his yard, but that would be at some expense to him to pay for the cost of the pole.
So if not, is that a hearing before the Board of Selectmen that would have to come?
Yes, what he was hoping to do was waive the hearing before the board in order to, so that they could get the electrical service in. I guess they're ready in about 2 to 3 weeks to move in the house, and they'd like to get in before the end of the year. So I said, well, I think we could probably waive the hearing until I looked at where the pole was going, and then I said, you know.
Yeah, the neighbors want to come to a hearing if that's
Yes.
where it
So
is.
that
Yes.
being said, you know, don't get under any illusions as to what kind of authority we have on a pole placement, right? You can try to persuade them and talk common sense and all, but ultimately we have to appeal to the DTE, I think it is, that they don't like what you're telling them.
Well, I don't think you want to hold it up for 6 months. They're ready to move into the house, so
No, I mean,
I don't know.
NSTAR.
Oh, NSTAR would have, yeah. But, you know, if you argued back and forth over that, it could take 6 months before that process worked
Yeah.
itself out.
You know, acting as a mediator, you try to come up with a common sense.
I mean, I feel it's a young family, they have a baby on the way, they're trying to get into the house, and that's the only thing that's holding them up.
You have any idea what the magnitude of a private pole is?
No, no, I don't. Yeah, my guess would be somewhere in the $2,000 to $4,000 range. By the time you figured the, I don't know if they have to put a transformer in, or they got to set the pole, they got to run the wire. You know, have a crew to run the wire. So
Yeah. That's what happens when you stick a house in a lot that, never had a house before, when the street was
Yeah.
laid out.
yeah,
Something
this
like
is it was a large lot that they
Large
split
lot,
into
they
two.
split in
so,
half, yeah.
So.
Okay,
I'm glad we went up because, I would have said, oh, sure, we'll waive
Yeah.
that, that's no problem. But
Yeah,
then,
and
then you look at where the pole was going, and I said, oh,
Geez, you can't do it.
so it sounds like either he's gonna have to have a hearing before the Board of Selectmen, or he's gonna have to work with NSTAR and pick up the cost of a private pole in his
Not,
own
you know,
property.
it's NSTAR, basically, you're having a hearing on NSTAR's behalf.
well, if it was a private pole, they wouldn't require a hearing.
Right,
So-
correct.
So those are the two options he
Pole
has.
placement hearings are the utility coming
Right.
in and asking you for permission to do something within your right of way.
So those are his only two options then?
As far as I can see, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Seems like
Um,
the private pole would be certainly the neighborly thing to do, otherwise it's just gonna be, I could see it'd be a little drawn out battle here.
I mean, I don't think I would want a pole in my front
No, of course
lawn.
not, no,
On the other hand, this poor person wants to get into his house.
yeah.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Colleen Sullivan would like to be appointed to the Plastic Bag Committee, and I would so move that we appoint her.
Do we have a second that?
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
And then the last thing, just a note of sadness, Pinky Meter, longtime town resident, very active with the Garden Club, just tremendous amount of work, has recently died, and just sympathy to her family, and she just was a great, great individual and just did a lot, especially with the garden club that the whole town of Medfield has really benefited from. And that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mark?
Don't have too much other than the fact that just, we had mentioned earlier at the meeting anyway, so we just got the big weekend coming up, kicks off the holiday season in Medfield. So just obviously, to reiterate, we encourage people to get out and enjoy the town on Friday evening and on Saturday for the parade and stuff. Hopefully the weather will cooperate and it'll make it a nice couple of days there. Well, actually Sunday too, so we got 3 days worth
Is that a
of
rain or
activity.
shine? Because the weather is a good Saturday.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So hopefully it won't be quite, hopefully it'll be, bearable and stuff. But once again, it kicks off the holiday season. There's like a million things going on at the same time, it seems like.
It's so nice to see all the people in the downtown when the
Yeah.
memo does its tree lighting.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the business, I think they'll continue to be, they'll be open for Friday night and stuff like that to encourage people to walk around downtown and stuff like that. And I think, Brothers and all the folks, I think will probably be making an extra effort there to, to have some nice things available for people to snack on and stuff.
Yeah, and we had Roach Brothers came in, Brothers Marketplace came in, and they wanted to try to work with, and they were gonna contact Memo to see if they did, okay, good, to
Great.
see if they could help, be a part of the
Oh, the Friday,
parade.
yeah. Oh, excellent.
Gonna have Brothers Midnight Madness?
Midnight Madness.
I guess there's one thing you get out of on Saturday. I presume they will not be doing the balloon test on
That's right,
the
for the cell tower.
Dover Cell Tower because they withdrawn their application for that, so. Speaking of which, I did have an email from our engineer on the water tower. They expected to have all of the contaminated soil around the old water tower removed by yesterday.
Good, yeah.
So he said they had made good progress on that. December 8th, the contractor doing the water tower,
Yeah,
Phoenix,
yeah.
whatever, Phoenix erectors or whatever, they will be starting on the foundation
Oh, good.
on December 8th,
Nice.
which is, next week?
Yeah, yeah. next
And
Monday.
the Olivera Construction, who's doing the water main,
Yeah, we'll be back.
they will be back next week, and they're gonna start first on the cross-country portion, hooking the section of line that goes from Hospital Road to the new water tower.
Okay.
And then he said he was working with them to get a schedule for the portion where they will jack under the railroad tracks. He didn't have that schedule yet, so hopefully that will be done this winter.
Yeah,
So
that'd be good. Be very good.
And Mike, what is the anticipated completion date of the water tower?
and it was initially November 15th. They are now proposing to work straight through the winter depending on weather conditions, and if they hit reasonably good weather, they think they could be done a month earlier, so it'd be October
Next-
2015, but it's,
Excellent.
I still would
Say
kinda go with the November 15th,
That's
Okay.
great.
given the vicissitudes of New England weather, so.
That's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Wow. So a pretty involved project, really. I mean, think about it, it'd take a year
Yes,
to build that.
yes,
Get it
yeah.
set up. I mean,
Yeah, it's a pretty tall structure. I
Yeah.
think you realize it until it goes up. I think it's
And
about
it's-
30 feet taller than the existing one.
yeah.
And it's made out of some sort of composite or something, isn't it? Or
No, we looked at it. They looked at a fiberglass one. I think Medway did a fiberglass tank up there, but the company that built those had never done one that large.
oh,
The base will be concrete. I think it will have concrete exterior. It will have pipes inside to hold the water, but then the top is steel, I think. Or
It's that mushroom shape, right? It's not
It
the,
is, right? Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice.
And then there'll be rings and that on the top to provide for antennas,
And stuff like that. Yeah,
cable antennas.
that'd be great.
So it will be, and then there'll be some structures on the ground for
Yeah.
electrical service or
Yeah.
whatnot.
so, Mike, when did you want to start the contest then to design the art for the side of the
I
water
know, I
tower?
was just thinking about that. We could have some big mural or something up on that.
No, we know what we're going to put. It faces the Dover Sherburne Schools, so we're going to put "Go Warriors."
With a loudspeaker.
Yes. Or we could put the score of this year's Thanksgiving Day game.
14-13, sure.
Okay, and the other thing, I just wanted to remind you, if any of you have any interest, is Saturday morning from 8 to about 10 o'clock. I'll be meeting with the warrant committee to do my annual finance session. So, and that'll be held right here, so refreshments will be served, so.
So were you all set with your
I am.
selectmen's report? The only thing that I had to report on really was the going to the Medfield State Hospital Master Planning Committee, which now seems to be the official name now. And Mark and I were there, and they were mainly hearing from the report about the C3 company that had been hired to look into the cost of renovating, giving costs for renovation of buildings, and they also gave a cost for demolishing. One of the buildings that they looked at, one of the 4 representative buildings that they looked at, they said was so unsafe that it couldn't be renovated, and they said it had to be demolished, and so they came up with a demo cost for that. Their demo costs were so high that I spent a lot of time since that meeting looking into whether that was a reasonable figure or not, and decided in my own mind that it was not. That we had a lot of other data points that seemed much more reasonable and likely, that were more in line with what we had told the town at the town meeting it was more likely to be. And I'm assuming that maybe we'll hear a little bit about that from the Medfield State Hospital Master Planning Committee that we're supposed to be meeting with now, but I don't see Steve Nolan, so.
He said he'd be here on 8:30.
Oh, well, we scheduled him for 8:15, so I guess we,
Well, actually, my understanding was that we weren't on the agenda, that there were citizens from the former committee that had concerns about the cost, and they were going to. From the message that I got from Steve by email, he said that there was likely to be some members of the original State Hospital Advisory Committee who had some concerns about the potential high cost of demolition, and that they were going to come and try to speak with you to understand their perspective, sort of on the 11th hour, but certainly their hope was to make their point known to you before the town would enter into signing the Land Disposition Agreement. So Steve just basically said, if the Board of Selectmen wanted members from the current committee to be available for questions, would we please arrive? But we weren't we didn't think we were on the agenda, per se.
okay, all right. You're on the agenda that we got, so.
So he'll be here shortly, then, so Steve will be here shortly, yeah. I think, and Chris is working on the last, I think, some of the
Oh, the
paperwork on
agreement?
the LDA. on the agreements.
You might want to hear, Gil actually has done quite a bit of work, as you know, on
Gil's done
looking at
an
different
incredible
other
amount of
state
work on
hospitals, and
Yep.
he may want to,
Yeah, sure. You want to just talk to us about the demolition cost that you discovered, Gil, and thank you for doing so much work.
Thank you. I'm Gil Rodgers, live on North Street. And probably for the last year and a half since I've been involved with, first of all, SHAC, and then secondly with the Master Planning Committee, I've tried to collect as much data as I can about actual demolition costs based on the experiences of other hospitals. And I thought that was a good benchmark to use because they're a comparable size and structure, brick buildings, comparable states of decay, that type of thing.
Similar age of construction, a lot of
Yes,
them. yeah.
So that you would get comparables. And as I said, what I tried to do is to go to actual projects, actual hospital sites, and get data directly from senior people at that. And I put together a memo that I believe you all have copies of. I know we sent it around. And I really quoted 5 examples that I thought would be relevant. There's more, but I think those are the ones that are most representative. And let me just go to the second one, is basically data that I got from DCAM directly. And not just me, but Ken Richards had actually gotten a report with Christine when we were working in January. And then I've had the chance to actually meet with John and talk to him more about it.
And John is John
John O'Donnell.
from DCAM.
Who's the senior person. And then also Dave Perini, who's on our committee, contacted DCAM directly as sort of due diligence and just to confirm the numbers. But number 2 is basically a set of hospitals in Massachusetts. And John said it was really based on multiple sites, such as Danvers, Westboro, and I forget the others, but Leonard, and so it was based on a set of existing hospitals. And just to be clear, and I talked to John quite a bit about it, I said, what is included in the cost estimate? And what he said was that it includes abatement, so in other words, taking out asbestos and other materials, lead, around the windows, that type of thing. It includes the demolition of the buildings themselves. It includes the removal of the materials, so carting it away, which has costs. And in some cases, for the hazardous materials, they have to be taken to a separate site that can treat asbestos and other materials like that. And he quoted a range of prices of between $11 and $14. And there's 2 types of wages. For government properties, you have to use what they call prevailing wages by law. For private, it can be used, they can use non-prevailing wages that are, 10 to 14% cheaper, lower. So there's a differentiation. But for this one, those were all government, under DCAM. So the range that he said was $11 to $14 per square foot, which is the number that we'd actually gotten earlier in January. So it was consistent with that. And it also, just to be clear, it includes all fees. There's engineering costs, there's permit fees, there's a number of there's some margin, profit margin on it. It includes all of those costs. And that's called all-in costs, so you have to be careful kind of how you define it. So I thought that was a good benchmark. And it's based on hundreds of thousands of square feet too, because you're talking about 5 separate hospitals.
Sure.
The problem with it a little bit is that takes place over a number of years. So that can go back to probably 10 years ago or so. So it's at different time frames. Now, we could play an economist's role and inflate those, for using a GDP deflator or some sort of cost inflator. But I decided to just keep it like it was. So $11 to $14, that's our actual cost in those dollars in that year.
Yeah.
Okay, but then to check it, because there's been some question just about how accurate that number is. I then went to other places. So for example, I got several estimates from Foxborough, one of which was very current. Steve actually asked me to do this. So I contacted Foxborough that had just recently demolished buildings in this last summer. They demolished 5 buildings and smaller size. He said there was on the order of 40,000 square feet. The cost for abatement plus demolition of the buildings was $4 per square foot, which is low, but that's what it was. And it didn't include carting bricks away, because what they were going to do is crush the bricks and use them for fill, which is often what you would do. You probably do it at Medfield as well. So you wouldn't necessarily have to take the material away. And then to verify it, so I got that information from Doug King, that probably many of you know is one of the big developers, very successful developer at Foxborough, incidentally. But then to verify that, I then called the demolition company. And the president of that company called me back and then verified the numbers to make sure, because I was surprised how low it was. Then I also got information directly from demolition company, Skinner Services, or Skinner Demolition, which is a very major demolition company that did a lot of work in Foxborough. And I met with David Skinner, who is the president, and he actually came out to Medfield and walked the whole site with me. So he walked around and made notes, and then he sent me a proposal for demolition, which I included in the package. You should see it in there. And there it was estimated that there were 34 buildings. We took out several of the buildings, like the chapel, the carriage house, the laundry, that were going to be demolished by DCAM at that time. But he included other buildings. He included the Odyssey House. He included taking down the water tower. He included taking down the small cottages on the periphery of the campus. So, and there the estimate was for about 550,000 square feet of material, and this was just a demolition cost. So it was not abatement, because that would be a different company. But his estimate came in, and we got an actual proposal for $11 per square foot. John O'Donnell had told me, and I asked him specifically, I said, how much are the abatement costs in this large sample that he's had? And he said they were on the order of $2 a square foot. The abatement costs were surprisingly low. A lot of people think that they're very high and they get all worried about it, and actually that seems to be way inflated, that it's not that difficult. It's asbestos that you can easily identify in the basements, mainly around the steam pipes. It's tile that's in the tile. It's material around the window. So he said that it was low, like on the order of $2 per square foot. Then finally, I got estimates for Foxborough, because they did a lot of demolition of buildings there. They did on the order of 280,000 square feet of demolition of buildings. They saved some in restoring them. And at Foxborough, and it's very similar, because we visited, I think you were on that. No. So they saved a number of the buildings. But from, then I met directly, or talked on the phone directly with all of the people that did the development there directly. So Vince O'Neill, who's the president of VINCO, I met with him. And there the number came in, and this is in 2005 dollars, at $13 per square foot, which kind of falls into the ballpark of the others. And then finally for Northampton, we met, Roz and I were up several times, and we met with Beth Murphy, who's the project manager from Mass Development. And she gave us the numbers for on the order of 500,000 square feet, so the same magnitude that we're talking about. And the price there was $14 per square foot. So kind of in summary, when you look at it from different ways, you know, either directly from DCAM, which in many ways is probably the most authentic in a sense because it's coming directly from them. But then when you verify it by looking at it from other perspectives or getting inputs from other people, they seem to cluster in that range of $11 to $14. But again, you would want to inflate that some for just you know, construction cost inflation and that type of thing. So it's, you know, that gives you a ballpark. But again, everybody says you really have to, you know, deal with each project on its own merit. So this will give you kind of a benchmark to think of. But when I compared it with the presentation that we got from C3, and I made an issue about that at the meeting for those of you that were there, that it just seems to be way off base. And I actually brought that up to John O'Donnell. I said, we're getting numbers about $50 a square foot.
Well, it was $79 and $61 a square foot. It was just astronomical numbers. And
so that was my effort to try to put together a consistent, consolidated look at costs and try to get it, you know, from multiple sources, so that gives some sense of validity to it.
I think, in fact, I think it was John Thompson who said, correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned a lot of the issues with the cost is asbestos. And because of the way that each building at the state hospital doesn't have its own furnace and stuff. I believe you said there was a lower amounts of asbestos probably in those buildings. Is that a fair?
John, can you just use the microphone? Thank you.
So I don't know how much of the asbestos would be in there.
We had piping going into the buildings, they didn't have individual boilers,
Right.
and most of the asbestos is really in the floor tile, not in the piping, because, you want to insulate piping in the basement where it's damp and where you don't want to have heat loss. But once that pipe comes up through the floor to heat a space, it no longer needs to be insulated because it's thermostatically controlled, and you're trying to emit heat
Yeah.
from the radiators and the piping.
Yes.
So there's no need to have asbestos jacketed piping above the basement level. So most of it, and I went back and looked at ATC's asbestos report to confirm that most of it's in the actual floor tile. And
Mhm.
floor tile is very stable, it's glued down.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in the plaster, it's not in the paint, it's in some of the piping. And for instance, in the chapel, we saw that it was already stabilized in parts of the piping in the basement of the chapel. So it's there, but it's not a large percentage. You could fit most of the asbestos in any one of those buildings in about 3 roll-offs, 1 to 3 roll-offs. All of it would fit. And that's where John O'Donnell is looking at that price of a couple of dollars a square foot for abatement in the buildings.
John, what is a roll-off before you pass the microphone?
A roll-off container is the back of a dump truck.
Okay, thank you.
An 18-wheel dump truck that they can actually take the back of it off.
Okay, so it just,
So
but it's
think
not that much is what you're
It's
saying.
about 3 of those for each individual
Yep.
building.
Yeah, it's
How
not a
much
lot.
you
Okay,
generate.
thank you. The other thing that I was told in the past week, and it's part of doing my due diligence after the meeting that Mark and I went to, was that asbestos wasn't used in buildings until 1925, and so that these buildings from 1890 were not originally built with asbestos.
I'd just like to make one more comment too, in terms of the risk to the town and the risk to our investment that is encapsulated in this, demolition issue, okay? It's not likely that, in a sense, the town would have to write the check to do the demolition. But it's very important to know that if the cost of the demolition to be borne, to be borne by the developer is so high, therefore it makes the project infeasible, and therefore we're stuck with the land ourselves, and then potentially, ultimately, would either deal with demolition proactively or passively, as the case may be. So I think Gil has done a really good job of researching it and bringing into perspective that anything from $11 to $14 to $15 a foot, therefore is not economically challenging to a developer, and can be baked into their total development costs. So that's what the risk is. The risk is I think people in town think the town of Medfield is going to start writing checks for
No.
development and be adding to our basis in the land.
We're not doing
And I wanted to make that pretty clear.
that. We're not doing that, yeah.
And those figures that Gil found were the figures that we presented at the special town meeting about the expected worst-case costs, so that it's right in line with what the due diligence was up to the special town meeting. It was hard because the C3 report came in so late in the process. It had been actually commissioned by the prior version of the state hospitals, the SHAC committee, State Hospital Advisory Committee, and it just took a year or longer, Chris, to get to us, and then it had this sort of outlier numbers in it. But caused me to make a lot of calls and
Yeah.
to get a lot more information to feel comfortable.
Steve,
Steve, would you like to
So-
say anything, or we're ready to?
Sure, everyone else has done an adequate job. Okay. So,
I have the land
That's
disposi,
undersigned?
I have the land disposition agreement
Sign.
ready to sign.
That's great, so. We need to take a vote, we need to take a vote on this?
You need to vote to sign it.
I move that, is it a proper wording, or just we?
Just,
Vote to sign the land disposition agreement.
yeah,
I move that the Board of Selectmen sign the land disposition
Agreement.
document?
agreement.
I will second that wholeheartedly.
Any further discussion?
No, well, just me, I think this is one of the most important things as a town we've done. And I think years from now, people look back at this moment. My fear always has been that if we didn't get this signed by the end of the year with a new administration coming in, we would have lost this altogether.
Definitely.
And I think the gentlemen and ladies that are here and those that have served in that committee over the years, the job you guys have done, this is kind of the crowning moment in that sense. And I think the town of Medfield now and future generations are going to thank you guys and ladies for all that you did. So thank you.
And it was very clear to me all along that the town really wanted to control the outcome of the state hospital property, and that's what we're doing. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Excellent.
Sign it down.
Can we hand out pens?
There are certain areas where all three of you will sign,
Sign.
and certain areas where just the chairman will
It's good
sign.
sign, okay?
Yep. So you can start there
Got
and go
there.
through. I have
Excellent.
tabs where.
So,
Excellent. Very
Mike, do you want, or Chris, do you want to talk about the other things, the notice from Verizon about the fact that they're no longer on Fios, on Verizon Fios?
I just hope a future Patriot game
Yeah,
is on.
they were lucky the Patriots were not on Fox this past weekend, otherwise there would have been a lot to pay.
No. I just want to follow up signing this. The closing is at 11 a.m. tomorrow at the
Excellent.
registry in Dedham.
Do you think this is just Pete?
That one is just Pete. Yep.
Just Pete. Looks like that's just you.
At the registry in Dedham. 11 a.m.
Okay. And I think this is just Pete too, authorized signature. We've got one signature here, so we'll do that.
Do you want to get the committee up to take a couple of?
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, we should open it.
Yeah.
Come on, everyone up here.
Elliot.
behind us. We got a
Come on
group
up.
picture.
Let's go.
Good for the town report.
Come on, get up there. Now, John.
Mr. Hardy?
Obama,
Get up
you know,
there.
and have multiple pens.
Yeah.
I want to stand next to Mr. Arrow.
Oh gosh, if I never take a picture with one blue.
Yeah, no pins, no certificates.
Yeah. Oh, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Come on.
I think you need John kneeling in front of the table with a basketball.
It's like those Little League pictures. That's the ribbon cutting.
Nothing but the good stuff, huh?
So we can crack open that.
You're the only one that signs.
And then I think,
Don't know, but I think that's what Evelyn told
yeah,
Mark.
and then we've got, looks like there's 3 signatures here. So it's good.
This LDA seems a lot shorter than the one that I kept reviewing.
Otherwise, this your free absentee.
How's it feel to become slum landlords now? Look at the condition of those buildings.
There's some more things for Pete. There's another thing for Pete.
Oh, there's the actual
Yeah,
LDA.
yeah, this is it. There's just a couple copies of it. And then there's just your. Yep. Excellent. This is good. This is good. Is it
twist off?
Huh? No, I need a bottle opener. This
Oh,
is my
dear.
cord.
Oh,
If there's something in the, hopefully there's something in the kitchen.
no, we don't drink on public property.
So what do you think? You pretty excited? Yeah? It'll be better when you go tomorrow and see it go on record.
Once it's actually
On record.
closed, then I'll be,
That'd be great.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Now,
all the committee.
easy part is over.
Yeah.
How many years?
Long time.
A long time.
Pretty exciting stuff.
Well, really, over 10 years, actually.
Well, they closed in 2003, so yeah.
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 I started working on it at the end of 2001.
Her
You
children
might
were
have to
babes
just type
when
my
she
name.
started this, and now they're
I
in high
didn't
school.
put my name in a couple places. Is that all right if you want to?
Sure, we'll do that. I'll do that.
You hold
Unless
me,
you
you
want-
hold me up at the closing and we're gonna have issues.
You better look
Now,
it
do you
all
have to
over.
take that in town? Do they,
They're doing right in Dedham.
Did you want me to handwrite in my?
No, no, we'll take care of
That's what Richard means by in town.
it.
I get away very often.
Man, that feels good to get that done.
Big deal. It's a really big deal.
The commissioner signs. The commissioner is signing, but she's signing it in the office and then they'll put them together. Yes. And the MOA will arrive tomorrow at the registry at 11 as well. So,
So do you have to be there, or they?
no, the attorneys are doing it. Yep.
So we're getting the keys tomorrow?
We'll get the keys tomorrow.
Yeah, you can take a picture of that. You guys get the keys. Definitely. You know what I mean?
We're working on a transition plan for that.
Yeah.
Gee, I hope they left the refrigerator like they said they would.
They didn't seem to be.
Broom clean?
Broom clean, that's what they told me. Broom clean.
I think they
they
tagged it
sign
because
Tree
they're gonna have
City?
to put a page in.
I don't know, I
Okay.
can see the folder.
It's in there, okay. I've got to send that in tonight.
Yeah,
Sign the
they
Tree
were
City
surprised they
thing.
had to
Oh,
do
no, I
that
didn't,
again.
thank you.
So it's an annual,
Annual, yeah,
Skipped that
annual
one.
application.
Sign that.
Yes, you do.
Just Tree City.
Do you want to double check these?
Oh, I'll take care of that,
Signatures,
yep.
though?
You want me to sign this Tree City, it says mayor or equivalent?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor Pearson.
Yeah, even though it's an annual application.
Yeah.
100 years from now, they'll be judging it.
Yeah.
No pressure.
No pressure. Excellent.
Thank you very
Good.
much.
Thank you, thank you.
Probably just retired.
So we're finally all done?
All done? Excellent. And on a high note, pretty exciting stuff.
It really is.
What are we gonna buy at our next meeting?
I don't know. Excellent. We're adjourned, huh?
Yeah.
Before Sunday.
Hi, I'm Jeff Marsden, and you're watching Medfield.tv.